Ladies and gentlemen of the press, good afternoon. The distinguished gentleman who's sitting on my left here is Judge Koroma from Sierra Leone, former judge for many years at the International Court of Justice. I will explain later why he is here. We, as you know, the parties have been meeting here in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia, for the last 22 days. 22 days, this last session. And we adjourned yesterday, and will reconvene soon after Eid, which would be around 22nd, 23rd, 24th of this month. The reason we adjourned is because of Eid. As you know, that this is the month of Ramadan, and our Muslim colleagues obviously then have got to attend to the religious obligations that arise during this period. That's why we adjourned. And as I say, we will resume soon after Eid, later during this month of August. Very briefly, what number of things that were agreed between the two parties. One of them relates to what to do with the question of the disputed areas along the north-south border. I think, again, as you would know, there are 5 agreed disputed areas, which the two parties have been discussing how to deal with this issue. So they then agreed that they should refer these matters to a panel of experts who would then look at this, all the documentation that's available, and advise the parties about what should happen to each of the disputed areas. Now, the hope is that once the panel has completed its work and submitted its report to the parties, that would facilitate the process of their resolution of this question, so that the matter is settled as to which of these 5 areas, where do each one of the 5 areas belong, either South Sudan or Sudan. And that is why Judge Koroma is here. He is heading a panel of 3 experts. I'm glad to say responded very quickly to a proposal, a request put to them by the African Union Border Program to be part, to constitute this panel and to do the work that I've just indicated. And Judge Koroma is chairing that panel. So we believe that is an important decision, because it establishes a roadmap with regard to how to proceed with regard to the resolution of the dispute about these 5 disputed areas, which, of course, as you know, has been one of the fundamental causes of the conflict between the two countries. And therefore, the sooner this matter is resolved, the better in terms of securing peace between the two countries. I'm quite sure that we can supply you with the names and short CVs of the 3 members of the panel. But as I say, that we believe that this is an important decision, which fortunately has been acted upon quickly because of the speedy manner in which the members of the panel responded to the request of the AU border program to constitute the panel. So we were convinced we will move with regard to that matter. At the next summit between the two presidents, President Salva Kiir and President Bashir, they will sign a document which was initialed in March, which relates to the question of the, among others, relates to the question of the demarcation of the agreed sections of the border between Sudan and South Sudan, which would make it possible then to activate the systems and mechanisms that are visualized in that agreement to ensure that the process of demarcating the agreed sections of the border takes place as soon as possible. As a panel, we are very happy that there is movement on this border issue because, again, as you know, it's been one of the central sources of tension between the two countries. Now, if I could stay with the security matter, we reviewed with the parties all elements that relate to the agreements on security. And the parties have agreed, have confirmed their positions on a whole range of important matters. One of them being that they are committed to this termination of hostilities between the two of them, and therefore that there will be neither side will take any military action to address any matter whatsoever. And indeed we have been very pleased with the fact that certainly during the period since the adoption of the communique of the Peace and Security Council on the 24th of April this year, which was then endorsed by the Security Council later, in fact there hasn't been any clash between the two countries. So they are indeed observing the call that was made that they should terminate all military action against each other. So I'm saying we've reviewed all of this, and the parties have confirmed their commitment to all of these issues, which would include not supporting rebels from each other's country, withdrawing if there are any forces of each country that are still present in the other country's territory, withdrawing those to their territory, and so on. And a great keenness on the part of both parties that everything needs to be done to accelerate the process towards further guaranteeing the peace between the two countries. And in that context, they have there's a joint border verification and monitoring mechanism that was agreed last year. To once there's agreement on the security matters, and in particular agreement about a demilitarized zone between the two countries to separate the armed forces to further minimize the danger of any even accidental conflict, that they would be constituted that joint border verification and monitoring mechanism, then to monitor that peace, particularly along that demilitarized zone. Both parties have now deployed the monitors, the required monitors, at the temporary headquarters of the mechanism. That temporary headquarters is here in Ethiopia. So the people who would monitor an agreement along that demilitarized border are there already. They have already been convened. And again, I think, as you would know, there was an agreement that there should be constituted what is called an ad hoc committee. It's a complaints mechanism, so that if anything happens in terms of violation of agreements on the security matters, there must be a place to report and process complaints. The names of that ad hoc committee have also been given to the panel, and so the ad hoc committee is also on standby to be convened to do its work. The only thing that is outstanding with regard to these issues is an agreement, the agreement by the government of Sudan to the center line of that demilitarized zone. Again, you would notice that in November last year, our panel made a proposal to the parties about where that center line should lie, and gave them the maps to indicate where it should be. The government of South Sudan has accepted that map. Indeed, let me say that the Peace and Security Council and the UN Security Council accepted that map, and it did call on the parties to respect that and implement that agreement on the basis of that map. Government of South Sudan has accepted the map and therefore the center line. And the matter, we're still discussing the matter with the government of Sudan. So I'm continuing to engage them on this because they have raised various issues about that. So we believe that this matter will be resolved soon with the government of Sudan. So that then once that's agreed, then as I was saying, this demilitarized zone can then be determined, the monitors deployed, the ad hoc committee for the complaints activated, plus then the monitoring to take place, for instance, with regard to the accusation and mutual accusations that both sides are supporting the rebels of each country. In order to verify that, you need a mechanism to do the verification, and therefore the Joint Border Verification Committee and the ad hoc committee would be able to deal with that. So whatever complaints people might be, each side might have about the other. So it would contribute therefore to enforcing the decision agreed by both parties that they should not support each other's rebels. So I'm saying that the only matter remaining here is a conclusion of the discussions between the panel and the government of Sudan to get the government of Sudan to accept this decision as it was taken by the Peace and Security Council of the AU and the Security Council of the UN to accept, to accept the map which was submitted by the panel in November last year. And hopefully, I was saying, we are hoping to conclude this matter quite soon so that we can then implement all these agreed security measures.